So why write? Well, write because you have a story to tell. Write because there's something that you want to say and it's in your heart and you want to tell a story. Writing because you want to tell a story is a great reason to write. So write because you're a storyteller. Write because you have a passion to do it. Write because you want to share something with the world that's in your heart and it needs to get out there. Write because you tell stories that move you and you hope that they'll move somebody else too. And that is the reason to write, because you tell stories and that's your passion. And if that's why you write, then all the rest is just cake, you know. If someone pays you for it, hey, bonus. That being said, once you decide to write, there's a lot of stuff you hear. And you get advice coming at you from like all kinds of different directions. I mean, like all kinds of different directions. And some of it's conflicting. Actually, a lot of it's conflicting. Yeah. Some of the best advice I ever got, write what you love. Don't chase the market. Because the market doesn't matter. I mean, it does, because if you want to sell your stuff. But if you're chasing the market, it's going to change, and it doesn't matter because, why I say it doesn't matter is because if you're not writing what you love, then it's not going to be genuine, and it's not going to be your voice. And your voice is what matters. And that's why I say the market doesn't matter, because what matters is your voice. So write your story. Be a storyteller and write your story. And the next most important piece of advice I got is don't give up. You're going to get a lot of rejection once you decide to write. It just comes with the territory. It just does. But the fun part of that is that then you get the one that's not a rejection, and that's so cool. And then you get to have a party because it's really fun. Or the really fun one. Okay, so I'll tell you the story, right? Because I like to tell stories. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, so the first short story I wrote, we just moved to Seattle. This was 8 years ago now. Yeah, 8 years ago next month. And I wrote this short story, and we were going to attend this writing conference. Now, the whole reason that we decided to attend this writing conference was because an author that I really liked was going to be there. And the writing conference was in Surrey, British Columbia, not that far away. And I said, I could go to this writing conference and I could meet this author that I really like. She's going to be there. She's going to be signing books. And my husband said, well, you're a writer. You should go to the conference. And, that thought had never crossed my mind. I don't know why. And then he said, they have a short story contest. You should enter the contest. Again, that thought had never crossed my mind. I said, no, I write novels. I don't write short stories. I don't know how to write a short story. That was my thinking. I was like, I don't know how to do that. Under 5,000 words. my first novel was 100,000 words long, and it lives in a filing cabinet. Right, and my second novel was close to that. It also lives in a filing cabinet. Even Red and Gray, the first time I wrote it, was 120,000 words long. And then my publisher said you need to cut about 20,000 words. And so yeah, that was fun. But so I said, okay, well, I guess I could try that. So I wrote a short story. And I sent it to some friends, and I asked them for some feedback, and I edited the short story. And then I get an email that says, "You've been shortlisted in the contest." And I'm like, no way. That's so cool. I get my shiny star sticker. My first short story got shortlisted. Yay. And then I get a phone call, and they say, "Are you sitting down?" I'm like, "No, do I need to be?" And they're like, "Yeah." So I sit down, and they say, "We're calling to tell you that you won the Surrey International Writers Conference." And I'm like,
Wonderful.
and according to my children, this is their account, I start screaming. And my husband was still asleep at the time, so all he hears is screaming. And he doesn't know what's happening. But yes, I was quite tickled that my first short story won the contest. And I just couldn't believe it. I was amazed because I didn't think I could write a short story. I was like, I write 100,000 word novels. What are you talking about? I don't know how to write a short story. So yeah, I was thrilled. And so every once in a while you get the call, and every once in a while you get accepted by the publisher. So don't give up. It's hard, but it's worth it. Totally worth it, because you get the call. Don't listen when people say, "Oh, that's so nice," when you tell them you're a writer, because you get that a lot. "Oh, that's nice." And that feels a little discouraging, you know? It's like, "Oh, good job." You're like, "Wait, no, I meant it. I really am a writer. Seriously, really, I'm a writer. Do you know what that means?" You know, it doesn't sound like much, but it can be hard work. And yeah, I really do enjoy it, but still, it's hard work. Yes, I do it because I'm passionate about it, and because it is fun, and it is what I love to do. But yeah, it's still hard work. Don't discredit my goals and ambitions. Don't pat me on the head. So when people do that, let it go. Let it roll off your back. And I know I sound like I'm just saying, "Oh, don't do this and don't do that and don't do this," but there are some do's too. Writing is storytelling, so write the story that makes sense to you. Write the story you love. And do have fun with it, because, you know, writing should be fun. It should be something that gives you joy. Yes, it is hard work. It is real work, but it's fun too. You know, it's something that you can have fun with. And writing the story that you love will be something that gives you joy. So I guess that brings me to why fairy tales. Why did I get into writing fairy tales? Well, because I really like fairy tales. I've liked fairy tales since I was a little girl. A couple of my favorites are Beauty and the Beast and the 12 Dancing Princesses, and not the Barbie version. Sorry, Willow Weave. Not the Barbie version. The original fairy tale. I had these beautifully illustrated books when I was a kid of Beauty and the Beast and the 12 Dancing Princesses. They were gorgeous books with beautiful illustrations. And then The Little Mermaid, although I know everyone's gonna poo-poo me, but I do like the Disney version of The Little Mermaid. I know, give me a break. She has red hair. She was the first redheaded Disney princess, okay? I was like, oh my gosh, she's just like me. But yeah, and also it actually does end better than the original fairy tale of The Little Mermaid, okay? You know, because the original one didn't end all that well. So, really. What was that?
Better for happy endings.
Yeah, it's better, yeah. And hey, I'm a sucker for happy endings. I like the happy endings. Yeah, so But those are a couple of my favorites. So then, I know, you're thinking, well, wait, why rewrite Little Red Riding Hood then? Because that's not on your list of favorites. Okay, so I'll get to that. But just so you know, I have plans in the works for rewriting The 12 Dancing Princesses, which I'm doing right now as the sequel to Red and Gray, and to rewrite Beauty and the Beast, which will be the third book in the series. So Little Red Riding Hood started it all because I had to know the answer to a question. Why did the wolf want the food? Why? I mean, really, he's a wolf. He can go out and hunt his own food, right? I mean, seriously. Why did he want the food in her basket? What was so good about the food in her basket that he had to have it?
He wanted her.
Well, there's that too. If you read the original fairy tale, there's a heavy inclination of that.
No, I was meaning for food.
Yeah, but no, that he wanted to eat her, and he wanted to eat the grandmother. And in the original fairy tale, the Grimm fairy tale, he does. And
oh dear. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Grimm, in the Brothers Grimm version of the fairy tale, he does eat them both. Fairy tales are very dark. Fairy tales are very dark. In the Brothers Grimm version of the fairy tale, he eats both the grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood. And then the woodcutter comes along, he hears the wolf snoring, and he thinks, oh, the grandmother's snoring really loudly, I better go check on her. And he goes into the cottage and finds the wolf asleep in the grandmother's bed. And he comes in and he thinks, oh, his stomach's really swollen, I'll bet he ate the grandmother, I should cut his stomach open. And he does. And out pops Little Red Riding Hood and the grandmother, both fine.
Swallowed them whole.
Yeah, he swallowed them whole. And Little Red Riding Hood says, oh, I was scared it was dark in there. Yeah, it's a fairy tale, you know. And they say, oh, well, we don't want the wolf to get away when he wakes up, so they fill his stomach with rocks and sew it shut. Yeah. True story. This is the Brothers Grimm fairy tale.
Their name befits them. Their name befits them, the Grimm brothers.
Yeah, I know, right? So, and then the wolf wakes up and his stomach is all full of rocks and he can't go anywhere because his stomach is full of rocks and he dies. Yeah. It's very dark.
Pretty grim.
Yeah, pretty grim. I wanted to ask the question, why does the wolf want the food? And at this point, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to read you some from my story. But I'm not sure I can do it while I hold the mic. That's the only problem.
Hold the mic for you or something?
I'm going to try it. Let's see if I can do it. So I normally read the chapter where the wolf first sees Red. And I was considering doing that tonight. But I was also thinking about reading the chapter where my main character actually becomes a wolf. So I'll put it to you guys for a vote. Who wants the chapter where he becomes a wolf? There's a fair number of hands there. Who wants the chapter where he first sees Red for the first time? Okay, the chapter where he becomes a wolf wins. See, my kids voted for that one because they've already heard the chapter where he first sees. So they outnumbered y'all. All right, so this is actually the second chapter of the book. Pounding dragged Connor from sleep the next morning. Dark dreams of golden wolf eyes haunted his sleep and woke him often during the previous night. Connor, get up, his father demanded from the other side of his door. Connor stumbled out of his tangled sheets and opened his door. His father stood, tapping his foot. Your mother is worse. She needs medicine. Go fetch it. Of course, father. Connor tried to ignore the chill that raced up his spine. He knew it had little to do with the cool spring air. Getting his mother's medicine meant a visit to the witch woman's house. An adult and an apprentice blacksmith, the witch should not terrify him the way she did. The sun was not yet above the horizon when Connor left the house, but the sky was no longer black. Instead, the air seemed almost gray, shifting into lighter shades while he walked, as if the sunlight filtered through the remaining bits of night. Leaving the town center, Connor passed more homes with dark windows and doors still closed, no doubt barred. He continued through the cobbled street on his way out of town. The witch lived beyond the town limits. Her house set back off the dirt road, close to the woods on the mountainside. She was not far from where they had hunted the wolf. People claimed she could bless or curse a person at will, and paid her quite well to buy her spells. Connor remembered hiding behind his mother's skirts the first time he met the witch. Both women had laughed, calling him shy. In his mind, since that day, the town had started to change. It became a darker, heavier place. People stopped trusting each other. I lost my place, sorry. People stopped trusting each other, helping each other, and caring for each other, unless they had something to gain. More people got sick. More children died. He tried to tell people, but they laughed at his fears. Or worse, he learned soon enough to hold his tongue. Connor tapped on the witch's door. It opened too quickly, as if she knew someone was coming. Her face twisted into a smile when she saw him. He clenched his hands and forced himself to stand straighter, meeting her pale green eyes. He hated her eyes and met them only when he had to. They made his head hurt. "Connor, is your mother having an episode, child?" Her head tilted to one side and her eyes roamed over his body, the look calculated. "But not so much a child anymore." "Yes, ma'am." Connor had no idea what to say to the woman. He did not like the way her gaze sized him up. "Come in, boy. No reason to stand outside." Connor hesitated, but she motioned him in again. "You need to come in. It will take me a few moments to get the herbs together for your mother's medicine." Connor shuffled inside the doorway, jamming his hands into the pocket of his pants. From here he surveyed the warm and cluttered main room. Herbs hung from the rafters and dried on the walls. Some he recognized, others were foreign. The witch walked over to the burning hearth. Her movements were light and quick. How did she escape the aches of age she saw in so many others? More imagination, more theories his family would no doubt find either amusing or irritating. "Well, don't hover in the doorway. Come sit down at the table. I'll give you a cup of tea." "No, thank you, ma'am. I'm fine." He tried to keep his voice polite, but he could hear the rough edge to it. "Would you refuse my hospitality?" Her tone chilled him. "After all I've done for your mother, would you truly offend me so?" Connor walked from the doorway to the table. He could not risk refusing the witch, He could not risk the witch refusing to make more medicine for his mother. He sat on the edge of one of the rough wooden chairs. It wobbled with his weight. Looking down at the grain of the table, he focused his attention there. "That's better. I thought you must have some manners." She placed a mug of steaming liquid in front of him. "Drink up." Connor lifted the mug and smelled the brew. The translucent golden brown tea mixed with honey met his nostrils. The color and scent seemed harmless. He took a small sip. The taste was as sweet as the scent seemed harmless. The taste was sweet and as the smell, different from what he was used to, but not unpleasant. Another smile contorted the witchwoman's face, and the look made Connor's stomach cramp in discomfort. He intended to sit the mug back on the table, but the smell rising from the liquid tempted him, and he lifted it to take another drink. This one deeper. Maybe it would soothe the strange pain in his abdomen. For a moment, it seemed to help. She nodded, triumphant, and turned away from him, back to the herbs she sorted. Connor's head began to feel light. His vision swam. He blinked several times. What was wrong with his eyes? Connor's stomach churned, and he lifted the mug, hoping the tea would calm him. This time the liquid seemed too thick and too sweet. It clung to his mouth and throat as it slid along his back and into his stomach. A heavy sensation settled over Connor's body, and he set the mug down before he spilled it. His head felt odd, his vision thick. With effort, he focused on the witch. A strange aura surrounded her, something he had never seen before. As if feeling his eyes on her, she turned to him, a satisfied smirk on her lips. "The job's done. There's no going back now." "Are the herbs ready?" Connor asked, trying to stand. His legs felt weak, and he fell. His back scraped the edge of the chair as his knees hit the rough wooden floor. The witch never moved from the fire. "Oh, your mother's herbs." She waved a dismissive hand. Her voice was calm. "I suppose your father will have to send out Minna for them. His youngest can be so unreliable. Such a disappointment, Connor. His hair is too light. His eyes are too blue. Is he really even the miller's son? His brother is so much darker. And the imagination that Connor has." Connor grasped the table edge and tried to pull himself off the floor, shaking his head. "I don't understand." The pain hit, a sharp stab in the chest. Connor gasped, releasing the table. He doubled over, his breath hissed between clenching teeth. "You'll do well, strong and healthy. Everything a protector should be," the witch muttered, turning her back on him again. Connor fought against the pain, trying to inch his way towards the door. His arms and legs refused to obey the commands he gave them. The harder he fought, the more intense the agony became. The pain raced from his chest to his back. It snaked up his spine and tightened, squeezing him. Connor fell to his knees, onto the floor, his cheek hitting the uneven boards. They felt cool against his burning skin. Terror followed the course of the pain, wrapping Connor in its fist. Curled in a ball on the floor, he moaned. His arms and legs twisted, joints cracked and popped. He felt fire on his skin. He cried out in panic and did not recognize the sound of his own voice. The cry was too high-pitched, more a whine. What was happening? He tried to stretch to ease the pain, tried to uncurl his limbs, but they would not work the right way. His legs bent at the wrong angles. He opened his eyes, and gray filled his vision. Trying to lift his head, he found his neck moved wrong. What had the witch done to him? He panted for air, past another ripple of searing pain. Yes, panted. He could feel his mouth open, his breath coming in short little gasps. His tongue hung out too long. It scraped his teeth, and they were too sharp. Gray. All he saw was gray. Answer just a couple of questions really quickly. One of them being, can wolves fish? Where'd it go? Hold on. Yes, they can. Wolves can, in fact, fish. And there's a picture of a wolf fishing. These were a couple of things I've researched for my book. I wanted to know, can wolves fish? Yes, they can. In my book, Connor fishes as a wolf. And I actually looked that up because I wanted to be somewhat accurate. The other question. Can wolves see red? If you go online, there's actually quite a bit of controversy on this one. Some sites say yes, some sites say no, some sites say maybe. The predominant research suggests that yes, they can see red. One quote says, "Although little research has been done into a wolf's ability to see color, it is believed that they may be partially colorblind. Wolves have only red and blue photoreceptors in their eyes, unlike humans, who have red, green, and blue photoreceptors." Tests on wolves where red, blue, yellow, and green dots were put on clean snow showed that they often detect the red and yellow stains. This could be because they associate these colors with blood and urine and have little interest in the other colors. So, the predominant research seems to indicate that they can see red. The reason why that is significant is because in my book, the only color that Gray can see is red. Oh, his name changes to Gray too. So it seems that they can probably see red. I wanted to be a little bit accurate in my fantasy made-up world. But I also figured since it is a fantasy made-up world and there is magic involved, if he could only see red, that really was okay. So at this point, I've covered pretty much all I have to cover, but I wanted to open it up and ask you guys if you had any questions. Yeah.
I've got a quick one already. What's the overlap between sci-fi and fantasy?
Oh, okay. So I write sci-fi and fantasy. My short story, A Decade of Scottsdale. You know how I said it wasn't about Scottsdale at all, Arizona?
Right.
It's not. It's actually a science fiction story.
Okay.
The first novel I wrote that lives in my filing cabinet is a science fiction story that's actually related to the short story I wrote, A Decade of Scottsdale, and is also a science fiction novel. The overlap, well, some people would say there is none, and some people would say there is a lot. They both fall under the title of speculative fiction. Speculative fiction is anything that kind of asks the question, what if? What if there is something impossible that were suddenly possible? For example, what if space travel were possible? That would be science fiction. Unless your space travel were possible because of magic, and then it's fantasy. Because it's magic. Right. So technology is kind of your science fiction. Magic is your fantasy. So my novel would be fantasy because it's magic. But then you've got all kinds of genres within fantasy. You've got urban fantasy, which takes place in the here and now. And then you've got, like, well, this is a fairy tale retelling, which is its own kind of thing. But high fantasy takes place with elves and goblins and that kind of, like Tolkien. And I guess the Wizard of Oz would kind of, or not the Wizard of Oz, why did I say that? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is what I was thinking, is kind of high fantasy. I said that because you're doing the play. My little son's in the play, the Wizard of Oz, so it was on the brain. But yeah, so you get into that kind of thing. So. Under speculative fiction, sometimes horror even falls under speculative fiction too. So, yeah.
So, do you think you would write another sci-fi novel sometime, or maybe even a different genre, or are you gonna be?
I would love to.
Christine, when you answer, can you repeat the question, please?
Oh, certainly, of course. So the question is, would I write another science fiction novel? I would love to. And I currently kind of have two stories going.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I'm doing right now is I'm writing, 1 week I write on one story, which is the sequel to Red and Gray, and the next week I write on the other story, which is completely and totally different, which is how I keep them separated. So I'm writing alternating weeks on alternating stories, which means that they're both moving very slowly.
I'm impressed.
But they are totally different stories. The other one is actually a post-zombie event story with no actual zombies in it, because in order for it to be a zombie, it has to be dead, and my zombies aren't dead. So, yeah. So yeah.
Horror, maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of horror. But I would also think it was speculative. Well, like I said, it falls under the umbrella of speculative fiction. I would think it's more like dystopian future, kind of, you know? Yeah, so, I don't know. Yes?
Who are the audiences for Red and Gray, and what do you hope that they get out of it?
So who are the audiences for Red and Gray, first off? I've told my oldest he can read it when he's 15. That was my cutoff for it. My best friend in Florida let her son read it when he was 11. I thought that was a little young. I consider it an adult fantasy novel. What am I hoping they'll get out of it? I hope they really love the story. I hope they find the ties between it and Little Red Riding Hood. There are quite a few, although it is not the classic Little Red Riding Hood. I hope that they get it's a story about someone learning about who they are. And I hope that they get that from it. That's what I got when I was writing it, which I didn't know going into it. I thought it was answering the question of, why does he need that food? And I hope I clearly answered that question too. But in the end, it's really about the growth of two characters and them finding out who they are. So, yeah. Yes.
Are there any generic lines that you slipped into the book from the fairy tale?
Yes, there are. There is at least one line that I slipped in from the fairy tale.
Which is?
Yes, I see what big teeth you have. I actually marked the page that's on too, because I considered reading that one too. But what?
You've got to say that.
Yeah, it had to be in there. It just had to be in there. In my next book, am I going to answer a question? Kind of. There's a lot of well, let me put it this way. In the world that my characters live in, there's a lot more going on than they realize is going on. The world's a lot bigger than they know of in this book. They live in a small town, and they've never been out of their small town. Well, my female protagonist has never been out of her small town. And she's going to find out the world's a lot bigger than what she knows it is. So yeah, there'll be some questions answered, and there'll be a lot more questions asked. So yeah.
Do you want there to be a movie made from your book? Why or why not?
Do I want there to be a movie made for my book? Doesn't every author dream that someone will turn their book into a movie? Yeah. I think it would be amazing to see my movie up on the big screen, just because, like, I'd be seeing my book, and, like, I'd be seeing my characters come to life. That would be the most awesome thing. Like, I see it in my head all the time. They, like, okay, so, like, my characters talk to me. This is, it's not as creepy as it sounds, okay? It really isn't. Like, people say, why do you write? I write to stop the voices in my head. If I write them down, they stop talking to me. No, they don't. They just say other things. And then I have to write that down, too. I finish one story, and they start telling me another one. No, I would love to see it become a movie. Do I ever foresee that happening? No, realistically, I don't. They already made a Little Red Riding Hood movie, and I watched the whole thing going, that's wrong. That's not how it goes. They obviously haven't read my book. Really, I really did. Ask my husband, I'm like, that's so wrong. They didn't read my book. Do they not know that's not how the story goes? Because obviously mine's right. Hello. So yeah, I seriously doubt that would ever happen, but I can dream.
I have a question about how you do it all. Some of our other authors are parents, Molly is, but you have 3 and you have a full-time job and you do volunteer work and you write, not just one book, but you got 2 books going, so do you ever sleep?
How do I do it all? Okay, so yes, I do. I do have 3 kids. They're amazing. I do have a full-time job. I do volunteer work at the school. And I do have 2 books going right now. I have the most wonderful, supportive husband on the planet. And I don't say that lightly. I really do have the most wonderful, supportive husband on the planet. He will sometimes just take the kids out of the house so I can sit down and write. I do sleep occasionally. And my kids are also fantastic. They know that when they come in and I say, shh, mommy's writing, that means that they should probably leave the room. Or they'll come in and they'll say, Mom, 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 Mom. How I relax. is by writing, and they can all tell if I haven't written in a week because mommy gets crabby. Because it's what I do to relax. You know, and like I said, it's not what I do to get paid, it's what I do to relax. It's what I do to decompress. It's how I get the stress out, you know. I go to my own little world and I write it down. So yeah, that's where I go. Unfortunately, the Puget Sound is right out our living room window, and I can see it. And sometimes when I'm writing, I will look out there and be like, oh, look at that. Look at the ships passing. Look at the waves. Oh, there's whitecaps today. Oh, it's so pretty.
Oh, so that's why we got the blinds.
Yeah, that's totally why we got the blinds. It's a true story.
When you get a rejection, do they give you a reason or give you any suggestions?
Okay, so there are stages to rejection letters.
Repeat the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you get a rejection, do they give you a reason? So the answer to that is there are stages to rejection letters. The first stage is a form rejection. Dear so-and-so, insert name here. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in your work. Goodbye. Never call us again. The second stage is the personalized rejection. Am I getting the stages right? Yeah. Dear so-and-so, thank you for sending us your work. I found it interesting, but it's not right for us at this time. Feel free to send us something else in the future. And then there's the third stage, which is I would call it the connection rejection, which may give you some feedback. Dear Christine, thank you for sending us your letter, or your synopsis or your pages, whatever. Most people ask for your synopsis in the first 50 pages or the first 10 pages or some amount of pages. It doesn't seem like it's a good fit for us at this time, but blah, blah, blah. Then there's the next stage would be, please send us a full manuscript. And then they actually read your manuscript, and then they reject you. But they're really nice about it, and they say, oh, no, it just wasn't, it's not right for our list. But maybe someone else will pick you up, which is the encouraging rejection. And then, of course, so that's the 3 stages of rejection, and then, of course, your final stage is getting accepted. And then there's the crazy rejection. That's out on its own. It's not one of the stages, but everybody gets one or two. The crazy rejection is did they even read my manuscript? What are they talking about? Like, I got one. They're like, why don't you turn your main character into an actual werewolf? Because I don't understand this. It seems like it should really be a horror story, and why did you do this way, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, if you don't like it, why don't you write it? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, it's the story I wrote. I get that it might not be the story you like, but that's okay. You can go ahead and reject me. Don't tell me to change my whole main character, though. Again, that's the whole don't write to the market thing.
Do you get stuck, and do you have tricks for getting unstuck when that happens?
Yeah.
Question.
Do I get stuck, and do I have tricks for getting unstuck? So I used to, so when I first started writing, I wrote entirely by hand. Wrote out with a pen. My first novel, over 100,000 words, written entirely by hand. And then I typed it into the computer. Yeah. Now I tend to write on the computer most of the time. When I'm starting out, just type on the computer, type things in the computer. So when I get stuck somewhere, I go back to writing out longhand. And it usually works every time to get me unstuck. I really like writing longhand. I actually prefer it. I don't know why. It's something about my brain. I don't know if it accesses something creative in my brain. I don't know if, when I was a little girl, I didn't have a computer till I was in high school. So maybe it takes me back to something. I don't know. But when I get to a point in the story where I'm like, I don't know what to do on this scene, I will sit down with pen and paper, a pad of paper and a pen, usually multiple pens because I like colorful pens. I'm a weird person that way. And every page is in a different color. But if I am really, really stuck, I will skip that scene and go to the next scene. And I'll jump ahead, especially if I know where that scene is taking me, but I don't know how to get there. So like, if I know where I'm going, and I know I want to be here, but I don't know the directions to get there. So here's where I'm going. Let's write here. And then we'll go back and we'll get there. I do that sometimes too, which I find helpful. And then I can go back and fill in because it's easy to fill in. And that's another handy thing to do on paper, because if I write that scene on paper, then I can go back and put it in once I filled in that detail later. So yeah, those are my tricks. But yes, I do get stuck. Yeah.
What's been most effective for you marketing it? Which way?
Question?
The most effective marketing. I don't know. Shameless self-promotion. Barnes & Noble has been fantastic, honestly. I love Barnes & Noble. I can't say enough good things about Barnes & Noble. They, this particular store, Westwood Village, yeah, they've been fantastic. My Facebook page is another great marketing tool. My website, another good marketing tool. Yes, I also have 3 small marketing tools who, when I am afraid to be a shameless self-promoter, will promote for me.
All of our teachers have her book.
Yeah, and then there's my PR guy who also does all my PR in the back there. He runs my webpage and my Facebook page. No, these 3, honestly, these 3 right here are my biggest marketing tool. They tell everybody, my mom's a writer. Do you know, my mom is a published author. Do you know my mom has a book? And my mom wrote a book. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's true, I did. Right, oh right, I wrote a book, didn't I? Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here tonight and to talk to all of you. And thank you so much for all the wonderful questions and for just being such a great audience tonight. Thank you.